This is Sutta number 48, the Kosambian Sutta. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in Kosambiya, in Gosita's park. On that occasion the monks of Kosambiya had taken to quarreling and brawling and were in deep disputes, stabbing each other with verbal daggers. They could neither convince each other nor be convinced by others. They could neither persuade each other nor be persuaded by others. What happened was, there was two different kinds of monastery that were in Kosambiya. One of them, they specialized in the rules for the monks. And one of them, they specialized in the suttas, memorizing the suttas and that sort of thing. The Kosambiya, the monks that were the rules monks invited the other monks to come for a meal and that sort of thing. And the two head monks got together and they were talking along, and the Sutta monk had to go to the bathroom. So he excused himself and he went to the bathroom, and they didn't have toilet paper at that time. What they did was they used water to clean themselves. So they had a big jug of water, and they had a little container of water that you used to clean yourself. So the Sutta monk, he did what he needed to do, and he cleaned himself, and he left a little bit of water in the small container. And the Vinaya monk, the rules monk, went into the bathroom right after him. And he saw that the monk had left water in that container. Now that there's a rule that says that you don't do that sort of thing, because insects can come in and lay eggs, and mosquitoes and that kind of thing, and you wind up killing them when you use that water. So when he got out, he went to the Sutta monk and said, "Did you know, Venerable Sir, that you broke a rule?" Now, the rule, the Vinaya monks are very, very strict with the rules. And they try to follow them as closely as they possibly can. The Sutta monk said, "No, I didn't realize that I did that. Please forgive me for doing that. I apologize and I won't do it again." So the Sutta monk thinks that this is all finished. But as soon as all of the Sutta monks left, the rules monks, the Vinaya monks, the head monk started complaining about how ignorant the Sutta monk was for breaking the rule like that. How can he do such a thing like that? So of course all of the other monks that he was talking to, they started talking in the same way. And in the morning they went out for their alms round, and the Vinaya monks met the Sutta monks, and they started complaining about how the head of the suttas, the Sutta monks, how he broke the rules and how foolish he was for doing that, and wasn't he a better monk than that, and all that kind of thing. So the Vinaya monks were really coming down on the Sutta monks, and the Sutta monks didn't like it, so they started quarreling with them and saying, "Oh, you don't know everything, cut it out, you don't even know what the suttas say." So they started fighting back and forth, and they started dividing the whole town. Yeah, just about a little bit of water, right? So, now you have some of the background on that. Then a certain monk went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and informed him of what was happening. Now, the Buddha came right after this. So When the Blessed One addressed a certain monk thus, "Come, monk, tell those monks in my name that the teacher calls them." "Yes, Venerable Sir," he replied. And he went to those monks and told them, "The teacher calls the Venerable Ones." "Yes, friend," they replied. They went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to him, they sat down at one side. The Blessed One then asked them, "Monks, is it true that you've taken to quarreling and brawling and are in deep disputes, stabbing each other with verbal daggers? That you can neither convince each other nor be convinced by others? That you can neither persuade each other nor be persuaded by others?" "Yes, Venerable Sir." "Monks, what do you think? When you take to quarreling and brawling and are in deep dispute, stabbing each other with verbal daggers, do you on that occasion maintain acts of loving kindness by body, speech, and mind, in public and in private, towards your companions in the holy life?" "No, Venerable Sir." "Monks, when you take to quarreling and brawling and are in deep dispute, stabbing each other with verbal daggers, on that occasion you do not maintain acts of loving kindness by body, speech, and mind, in public and in private, towards your companions in the holy life. Misguided men, what can you possibly know? What can you possibly see that you take to quarreling and brawling and are in deep disputes, stabbing each other with verbal daggers? That you can neither convince each other nor be convinced by others? That you can neither persuade each other nor be persuaded by others? Misguided men, that will lead to your harm and suffering for a long time." They didn't stop. They kept doing it. That's not in this sutta, it's in another one. And the Buddha got so fed up with them because one of the monks, the Buddha said, "You should stop quarreling," and the monk said, "Why don't you go sit in a pleasant abiding here and now? We'll take care of this." And the Buddha looked at him and said, "Okay." And then he went out for his alms round. He came back, he straightened everything up, and he left. Now this was right before the start of the rains retreat. The Buddha was going to spend 3 months in that place. But he got so disgusted that he left. Everybody in the village, really, in the town actually, really got angry. And they wouldn't feed the monks. They wouldn't give them any food at all until they stopped quarreling. And they had to publicly ask each other for forgiveness in front of all of the village before they would get any food at all. So this is the kind of an interesting sutta in that way. Anyway, then the Blessed One addressed the monks thus: "Monks, there are these 6 principles of cordiality that create love and respect and conduce to cohesion, to non-dispute, to concord, to unity." What are the 6? Here a monk maintains bodily acts of loving kindness, both in public and in private, towards his companions in the holy life. This is a principle of cordiality that creates love and respect and conduces to cohesion, to non-dispute, to concord, to unity. Again, a monk maintains verbal acts of loving kindness, both in public and in private, towards his companions in the holy life. This too is a principle of cordiality that creates love and respect and conduces to unity. Again, a monk maintains mental acts of loving kindness, both in public and in private, towards his companions in the holy life. This too is a principle of cordiality that creates love and respect and conduces to unity. Now, If I was going to be giving that talk, I would not give the talk in that order. This is a kind of a set formula in all of the suttas, body, speech, and mind. But I would turn that around and say mind, speech, and body. Because every act that you do, either with speech or with your body, comes from mind first. Everything, and when we read the Dhammapada verses, what does it say? The first verse.
Mind is the forerunner of all evil states. Mind is chief. Mind made our day. If one speaks or acts with an unwholesome mind, because of that suffering follows one. Even as the cook follows the hoof of the ox.
And?
Mind is the forerunner of all good states. Mind is chief. Mind made our day. If one speaks or acts with a wholesome mind, because of that, happiness follows one. Even as one shadow that never leaves.
Ah.
These guys got to get a life.
Keeping that in mind is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
No. So they all have books like that at home? Is that what?
No, this is the precepts that they've been learning. So they've been doing this all week and beyond that for you guys.
Okay. Well, you guys have, known about it before. Okay.
The point being that mind is a forerunner of all things. When you're doing your daily activities, before you do anything, it comes to your thoughts first. It comes into mind first. And if your mind is uplifted and happy, and you've been practicing your joy and smiling and laughing when your mind gets serious at things, then you have a wholesome mind, and that leads to more happiness. One of the things in one of the suttas that it says that's a very important aspect is what you think and ponder on, that is the inclination of your mind. In other words, if you think and ponder on joy and happy thoughts, your mind will incline towards joy and happy thoughts. If you tend to have thoughts that are fear or anxiety or any kind of unwholesome state, and you keep thinking about that, what's your mind going to tend towards? Thinking about that more. Now, what's the meditation doing? The meditation is teaching you how to recognize when your mind gets tight, and how to recognize those thoughts that pull your mind down. The fear, the anxiety, the restlessness, whatever it happens to be. As you are unmindful, as you don't notice that, then you fall into a habit of allowing your mind to do that. And that is a cause of suffering. So the more times you can recognize when your mind is grabbing onto things, and the feeling that arises, the craving that arises, your thoughts about all of your concepts and opinions and ideas, and then your habitual tendency, they're going to continue going in the same direction. As you begin to become more aware of what your mind is doing in the present moment, as you become more aware of having an uplifted mind, of practicing your smiling, of practicing wishing other people well, then your mind is going to tend towards that happiness. It only makes sense. What we practice a lot, that's going to be the inclination of how we see the world. So the meditation is teaching you how to recognize that and how to let that go. And let go of that tightness caused by mind's attention moving over to that distraction. Then, as you let that go and relax, you start smiling again and you come back to your object of meditation. And that is a happy feeling. And making a wish, putting that happy feeling in your heart, surrounding yourself with that happy feeling. As you start doing that more and more, your mind will naturally tend to have more happy, uplifting feelings. And your mind will tend to not get so tense and tight. And you start changing your old habitual tendencies. But it takes practice. How many years have you been living? That's how many years you've been practicing being unconscious. But now it doesn't take that many years to let go of that habit. I promise. It happens a lot faster. But there has to be the desire to see that suffering that you cause yourself and to let go of that and develop a new habit of bringing up wholesome things. This is why the smiling and laughing anytime your mind gets serious is such a necessary part of the practice. See, it's not just about sitting. It's about watching what your mind is doing all the time. There's nobody out there that causes your pain. You cause your pain to yourself. So, you've had years of practice of causing yourself pain. Now is the time to start recognizing that and changing that old bad habit into a new good habit. What happens when you do that? You start to have more and more uplifted mind, and your mind starts to get more and more a sense of balance. And with that balance, you start seeing the world the way it really is. You're not seeing through that focus of those old bad habits. And your mind knows when you're really vulnerable to having these bad habits come up, and it'll bring them up right straight away. It takes learning how to use the right amount of energy to let it go, relax, and come back to your object of meditation after you smile. Somebody just wrote me an email today and he said, I'm doing the mindfulness of breathing, but it gets in my way of doing the work that I need to do. So I haven't written him back, but I was going to before I got pulled away to do other things. But my answer to him is, don't do the mindfulness of breathing. Do metta. Why? Because it's easier to recognize when you have joy in your mind. It's easier to have joy in your mind while you're doing your work. You become much more efficient with what you're doing while you're doing it. Everything gets easier. But you can't forget the step of relaxing the tension and tightness. It's the most important step that needs to be seen and recognized. Because every time there's tension and tightness that arises in your mind, there is the belief, I am that. And there's the want to control it, to make the feeling be the way you want it to be. Nobody wants to walk around being fearful or upset or angry. It's not a pleasant feeling at all. The reason that it keeps growing and getting bigger is because you're continually trying to control the feeling with thoughts. When you're doing that, it's real easy to blame somebody else for your anger. And it's real easy to make excuses for having the anger. But that's not the truth. The truth is you are making yourself hurt. You're making yourself unhappy because you're trying to control your thoughts. You're trying to control the feeling with the thoughts. And you don't like those thoughts and you try to stop those thoughts. And that doesn't work. And the feeling gets bigger and more intense. Now you're full-blown caught in a hindrance. But the hindrance is your friend if you recognize it as a friend. Because the hindrance is showing you every time where your attachment is. Anytime you have repeat thoughts, there is an attachment. And the attachment is, I am that. I like this, I want it to stay like this, I don't like that, I want it to stop. Every time mind's attention moves, craving arises. And craving is that subtle tension and tightness. It can be a big tension and tightness in your body. Say you have fear arise. Where's the fear? Oh, I got fear. I get it in my stomach, I get it in my shoulders, I get it in my small of my back, I get it in my buttocks. All of these muscles tighten up. You notice those big things and you relax the muscles. How do you relax the tightness in the muscles? Make a fist, let go of the fist. How did you do that? You did that by recognizing that there was tightness and by consciously letting go. Now you do that through your whole body. Now you notice there's still some caught in your head. That membrane that's wrapped around your brain contracts every time mind's attention moves. So you have to be able to recognize that that is there and relax. When you do that, your mind feels like you have the feeling in your head like there's an expansion. And there's an ease that comes in. And your mind is very alert. It doesn't have any thoughts in it. Now you're seeing things for real. And you bring that mind back to your object of meditation, back to your heart. And making a wish and putting that wish in your heart. Feeling that wish. The nature of these kind of attachments is they're going to hang around for a while. They're not going to go away after 1 or 2 or 3 times letting it go. It's going to continue coming up. But what you start to do is you start to notice that this is a process. As you become more familiar how your mind went away from being on your heart to that anger, that sadness, that distraction, whatever that hindrance is, you start noticing little things. How your mind went from being happy, being on your object of meditation, to being unhappy and not liking it. You start noticing, oh, there's little things that are starting to happen before my mind gets pulled away. As you start to take more interest in how this process works, you start to catch that hindrance much more quickly. Now the hindrance is going to keep coming up as long as there's any attachment. But instead of being caught for 3 or 4 minutes by a hindrance, you might be caught for 2 minutes. As you become more familiar with how that happened, you might be caught for a minute. Then it's going to be 30 seconds, and then it's going to be quicker and quicker, until finally you're starting to see the whole process. And you're starting to recognize this is an impersonal process. I didn't ask this feeling to arise. I didn't ask these thoughts to be there. They came up because of my old habitual tendency and my lack of awareness. That's why they came up. But this hindrance is showing you exactly how your mind has these tendencies. Every time you let it go and you relax, you're letting go of your attachment a little bit at a time. And you're sharpening your awareness of how this process works. As you start to let it go more and more, then eventually that hindrance starts to lose its energy, because it doesn't have anything, it doesn't have anybody to play with anymore. It doesn't stay strong. It starts to get weaker and weaker until finally it does fade away. When it fades away, there's so much relief in that that it's remarkable. And then you feel all of this joy coming up. And it's a happy feeling. There's a lot of excitement. Yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. This is why I'm meditating. This is great stuff. But you treat that feeling in the same way as you treated the painful feeling. You allow that feeling to be there. Yes, it's a pleasant feeling. Yes, it's really great. But you allow it to be there and come back to your object of meditation. Now that joy is going to last for a while. And when it fades away, every time joy fades away, there is a feeling of tranquility that arises, and it's really nice, really peaceful, really calm. And you feel really, really good in your mind and in your body. There's no pains that arise in your body at that time. It just feels good. And your mind is very, very unified. Your mind is very composed, and it stays on your object of meditation easily. That hindrance has been teaching you over and over again where your attachment was. And that hindrance has been teaching you how to look at the process and how to see the process. And you start developing your equanimity, even at this early stage. You don't get so emotionally tied to that feeling and those thoughts about that feeling or your concepts, whatever it happens to be. It becomes more and more alert, your mind becomes more and more balanced. Now, when I was in Malaysia, I was talking like this, and somebody said, equanimity doesn't come until the third jhana. That's what it says in the suttas. And that's not what it says in the sutta. The equanimity gets really strong in the third jhana, so you really notice it. You don't notice it quite as much when you're in the first jhana, but it's there. You have this balance of mind, and it's really nice. It's really good. It's really peaceful and calm. Now, you're going to be sitting like that for a period of time, and when you have that kind of meditation and you're really going nicely, I say, keep going. Don't stop. Keep sitting for as long as you're comfortable. When it gets time to break the sitting, you don't break staying with your object of meditation. You keep with that radiating feeling, that flow, and making a wish for the happiness. And then you can get up and you can do your walking meditation. Or if you don't have time to do walking meditation and you have to start doing your daily activities, stay with the meditation as long as you can remember to stay with it. Carry it with you. That peaceful calm, that wonderful tranquility. And you'll go up and you'll see some friends or family members and they'll go, wow, what's happened to you? They'll feel it. They'll feel that peace and calm coming off of you. And of course, as you do your daily activities, you're going to forget. And you're going to get caught by other hindrances. And you're going to get caught by your old habitual tendencies. But you cannot criticize yourself for forgetting. That is just another form of hatred. So you let go of that idea that I'm going to be perfect in this right from the very start, because you're not going to be. You have a lot of old habits, and they're going to overwhelm you for a period of time. But as you continue on, as you keep practicing, you might forget for a couple of hours. And then you walk by a piece of glass that reflects and you look at your face and you go, I'm not smiling, time to smile again. Now there's a lot of different keys that you can use to remind yourself to keep your meditation going. You walk up to a door, you got to open the door. As you're reaching for the doorknob, that can be a reminder. Oh, I need to smile now. And I need to wish somebody happiness. And feel that. Now, one of the things about the meditation is learning how to practice your generosity. And the kind of generosity that I'm talking about is develop smiling and give it away as much as you can remember to. Give it to everybody you see. You're standing in line at the grocery store. You feel restless because I gotta hurry up and I gotta go home and I gotta fix a meal or whatever. Now, everybody else in line, what are they thinking? Basically the same thing. And they're all suffering. So you let go of that feeling. And you start smiling and you start wishing everybody in line a peaceful, calm mind. A happy mind. And especially the cashier, because the cashier is being hassled all the time. Can't you go a little faster? Hurry up, let's get this done. So you get caught in a traffic jam, which I've noticed there's quite a few of around here. What are you doing with your mind? God, I hate this. I gotta get to work. I gotta go see somebody. I'm gonna be late. All of those thoughts are unwholesome. So let go of those thoughts. Start smiling to everybody around you and wishing them all peace and calm. When I was in Thailand, I used to ride the bus every now and then if I go to Bangkok or Chiang Mai or one of those places. And every time I got on the bus, of course, the monks, whenever they get to ride for free, but they always ride in the back of the bus. So I'd be sitting there and I'd start radiating loving kindness, not paying attention to where we're going, and I'm starting to feel real happy, and then I start radiating loving kindness to everybody in the bus. And then I start feeling eyes on me, and I look around, and everybody in the bus, including the driver, is staring at me, smiling. And I say, okay, this is my time to get off. Did my job on that one. But the thing is, it has to be sincere. It can't just be a painted on smile. Nobody responds to that. It has to be the smile. So there's a lot of different things that you can do during the day that you can use as your reminder to smile more, even when you don't feel like smiling. I don't care. Smile anyway. When you're walking from here to the car, what are you doing with your mind? Thinking about this, thinking about that, not paying attention to much of anything. Well, use that as one of your reminders. When you open up the door, that's your reminder to start smiling and wishing happiness as you go to the car. And keep it going as long as you can remember. When you have to walk from one place to another, what are you doing with your mind? Thinking about this and that. Let go of those thoughts and start smiling. And develop that sense of joy. You can be in these deep states of meditation while you're walking around, but it has to be conscious. When you see that you're not smiling, you'll notice that there's tension and tightness. That means you got to relax and then smile. And then smile. And the more you can remember to do that, the more you become aware when your mind starts to get heavy. And it starts to think all of these other kind of thoughts that pull your mind down. The worry, the anxiety, whatever it happens to be. It happens to all of us. Every one of us. So, the more you can remember to practice this way, the easier it becomes. The easier it becomes during your daily activities, the better your sitting is. The better your sitting is, the easier it is to do your daily activities. But it has to be the conscious effort to continue doing that, wishing well. Now, one of the things that I used to do when I was a layman, I was a contractor. I used to build real fancy houses. And I was working in San Francisco, and I was working with Chinese businessmen, the presidents of banks, things like that. These are real fancy houses. Now, I don't know if you know what it's like to have somebody personally build your house for you, but there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and there's going to be changes in the bid because, well, you wanted to do this and it's going to cost more and all of that. So whenever I had to go see one of these men, they were really busy. I always tried to get to their office 5 or 10 minutes ahead of time, and I would stand in front of a mirror and I would smile for 5 minutes. Try it. But you got to do it with a clock. You got to have that clock there, because you start smiling and you go, oh, that was 5 minutes, and you look at the clock and it was 30 seconds. But while I was smiling, what I was doing was I was wishing myself well. I was wishing the person I was going to see happiness and a peaceful, alert mind. And I was putting my loving feeling into the meeting. Whatever we were going to talk about, it was going to be smooth. It was just going to be no problem. And when I did that, the meeting was quick, it was easy, and I was always successful. I always got to do the things the way I wanted to, and that meant I always got a little bit more money. The times that I didn't get there in time to do that, the meetings were terrible. They were really hard. They didn't want me there. I didn't want to be there. I was trying to radiate loving kindness, but I hadn't prepared myself first. So I learned some real big lessons. One of the things that happened when I was in Washington, D.C., I was there in 2000 when the election was happening. And one of the women that was coming to my meditation class, she was working with Joe Lieberman as his makeup person before he went on television. And she was quite a good-looking woman, and she was really interested in the meditation, and she was telling me about a problem that she had with her boyfriend. And they got in an argument. And I said, did you look in the mirror to see what your face looked like? And she said, no, I would be afraid to do that. So I gave her a mirror, and on the mirror it said, smile. And I said, here, next time you get in a fight, take a look at yourself and see if you really want to do that. See how you look. So she started to have more and more balanced relationships with her boyfriend and such, and that was a big relief. But Joe Lieberman was going to be having a debate with Cheney, and it was going to be kind of a major debate for them. And right before she's getting him ready and putting his makeup on, and he's like super restless, and he can't hardly sit still. She starts telling him the things I told her. And he was kind of halfway listening, and finally she said, this isn't going to work. So she reached into her purse and she pulled out the mirror. And she stuck it in front of his face, and she said, do you want to go on television with that kind of face? And he saw the smile and he started laughing, and all of a sudden the restlessness just disappeared. That's the magic of smiling and laughing. Now, when he went on television, I don't know, I was told later, because I don't watch television, I was told that that was the best debate of the whole election. That they weren't running each other down. They were just talking about their different philosophies of what they thought the way the country should be. And they were smiling and they were happy, and they projected that into the TV. So you never know how you're going to affect the world around you. But I affected that period of time with these people that were going to be on television. So I've always been, since I lived in Hawaii, which was in the 70s, I found out about the mirror in Hawaii, and somebody made a bet that I couldn't smile for 5 minutes, so I took them up, and it's hard. And you start smiling, and after 5 minutes you got some real sore muscles there. You didn't even know you had those kind of muscles. But I started to see what it did to my mind state. And I started really recognizing how this is a good thing. Now, at the time, I was giving massage to people. And any time I was giving massage, I was doing the metta, and it was going through my hand. It was real good. But I started noticing that I would give them suggestions to do things, and they would give me a yeah, and then they never did. So I started carrying the mirror around with me. And I said, okay, you got to smile for 5 minutes. I'll time it. Just so that they would start to let go of some of the heavy emotional things that they were going through. And after I got them to smile for 5 minutes, giving them massage, they had almost no tension in their body. I mean, it was great. It really worked well. So I was always carrying a mirror around with me. Some people would ask me to give a massage and ask me not to bring the mirror, but I did anyway. And I started to learn that that was really something. And then I had a girlfriend that she was into telephone sales, and she wasn't doing very well. And she asked me if she knew of anything that could help her so that she'd start to be more successful. So I pulled out the mirror and I said, when you're on the phone, you got to smile. And all of a sudden, she's on the phone and people aren't hanging up on her anymore. And people are really starting to get into what she's saying, and she started to be very successful. So that was another lesson that I taught myself, that when I had my own business, I had a mirror right beside the telephone. And the mirror wasn't any vanity thing, it was just to look and see whether I was smiling or not. And if I wasn't smiling, then it'd start again. And I used to have things like people calling the wrong number and talking to them for 10 or 15 minutes because it was so pleasant talking that they didn't want to hang up. The more kinds of ways that we can make for ourselves to have an uplifted mind, the more happiness there is in our life, the more balance there is in the way we think about things. That balance will start to stay, and you'll become more and more clear. That doesn't mean you still won't have some emotional times once in a while. They'll still happen. But they won't happen for as long, because you're training yourself to be more aware all the time. This is what the meditation is. It's not just about the sitting. Although you need to sit, because the sitting is your personal quiet time where you can really watch what mind is doing. When you get up, you want to keep that going as much as you can. And when you forget, you forget. Okay, so what? One of the things I did in Malaysia with my students, I had, lots. They would come to the meditation class and I would say, okay, now I want you to write down how long you radiate loving kindness during the day. If it's 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute, doesn't matter. I want you to write it down. And one of them was a school teacher, and she was the disciplinarian. In Malaysia, they cane people. If they need discipline, they really get it. They get whooped. But she never even had to use the cane because she was radiating loving kindness. And one day she had a rough day, and she came to the class and I said, "How much did you radiate the loving kindness today during your daily activities?" She said, "I wrote it down every time, and it was only about 8 minutes today. It was really a hard day." And she said, "That's really no good. I should be doing it a lot more." And I got excited. I said, 8 minutes, great. That's not a problem. That's a good thing. That's 8 minutes that you didn't have an unwholesome mind. You had an uplifted mind. You're teaching yourself how to watch. And that's really good. Then they started really getting it. They really started understanding the importance of being able to smile and radiate loving kindness into the problem. You want the solution? The solution to every problem that I've ever run across is the same thing. Radiate loving kindness into it, your mind becomes quiet, the answer comes. It's easy. Oh, but I gotta think about this one. No, you don't. What you gotta do is just train yourself to have that uplifted mind. As your mind stays more uplifted, there's more balance, there's more clarity. And everybody around you will benefit from that. One time, one of my teachers, he was a very famous Indian. His name was Munindra. He always wore white robes, had a little ice cream cap. How the Indians always have that little Nehru kind of hat. He was great fun. When he first came to America, he came to the meditation center that I was staying at the time. And I got to practice with it. And he started talking about how loving kindness can change any situation and change the world around you. So I said, okay, we'll see. So I went to a shopping mall. I was still a layman. I went to a shopping mall, and I walked around with a real somber face. And everybody around me had a real somber face. I thought, well, that part seems to work. So I went to a bench and I sat down and I started smiling and I started wishing everybody happiness, and I closed my eyes, and after a few minutes I started feeling eyes staring at me. So I opened up my eyes, and there's 10 or 12 complete strangers standing around looking at me smiling. And I thought, that worked. All right, so I got up and left. My experiment was done. I know that you affect the world around you. And it's your choice whether it's in a positive way or a negative way. And it takes practice to remember to smile. But once you start to get into the habit just a little bit, everybody else around you helps remind you to smile. And it really turns out to be a very fun practice. I know you're not supposed to say those kind of things. Buddhism isn't fun. Buddhism is about suffering. Monk. Buddhism is about the cessation of suffering. And the fastest way to the cessation of suffering is having fun with what you're doing while you're doing it. There's no job that you can do that is a drudgery when you have a happy mind. Everything is, it's all equal. I can take all of these books and put them in and lift them up and move them out, and do whatever. I can do everything happily or not. It's my choice. But you have to keep remembering that every time your mind forgets, there's going to be some tension and tightness there. And relax. And then start smiling some more. And giving that smile away as much as you can. There was a lady that came to me when I was in Malaysia, that she was very sickly. And the doctors had told her she had about 6 weeks to live. She had cancer. And she asked me if there was something that she could do that would help the world be a better place in the time that she had left. One of the things that I found out is that when you give life, that's one of the highest and best gifts that you can give. So I told her that, and I said, if you go out and buy some animals that are going to be killed, and then let them go free with your strongest wishes of happiness for them, that you're going to affect the world around you in a very wonderful way. So she thought that was a pretty good idea. So what she did, there was where I was at the time, I was in Penang, there's a lot of fishing boats around there. So she went to the fishing boat and she bought 100 bait fish, still swimming around every day. And she would go down a little bit because she couldn't let him go in front of the fishermen. They think she was crazy. She went down the pier a little bit, and she let him go free with this really, really happy feeling. And in Asia, when you go to the market, they have a lot of live animals that are going to be killed. Chickens, things like that. So that was fun for her, so she thought, well, I'll try it with a bigger one. So she went and got some chickens, and she bought 2 chickens. Now you have to understand what's going through the chicken's mind so you can really appreciate what's happening. These chickens know that they're going to be killed. They see their friends getting pulled out and then killed. They see it. So they have unbelievable fear and dread. This has got to be the worst day of their life. And then the butcher comes in and he grabs one of them, and the chicken is going, oh man, this is it, I'm going to die. And then they tie the feet together and give it to somebody, and they walk off. And then you drive out to the forest, which wasn't very far away, and she cut the string that was holding the chicken's feet together and let the chicken go free. Now the chicken went from the worst day of their life, from extreme fear, to one of the best days of their life because they realized that they're going to continue to live.
I guess they could find anything to eat in the forest.
Until the fox showed up.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't, there's no foxes in Penang.
Okay.
There's monkeys, that's about it. There's plenty to eat in the forest. They're used to grubbing. They know how to do that.
That's so cool.
But when she did that the first time, and she did that with a wish for their happiness and to let go of any fear and anxiety that she had, she felt such relief that it was unbelievable. And when she let the chicken go, there was 2 of them, she let one of them go and it just ran off. The other one went 3 or 4 feet, stopped, turned around, and looked her in the eye. And she knew that the chicken was sending that love and appreciation back to her. And it made her happy. Now she did this for a month. She was buying animals and letting them go free. She went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "What have you been doing? What medicines are you taking? You don't have any cancer." The gift of life is unbelievable. I mean, you go to a lot of these lobster places, you know, these lobsters know that they're going to be killed, and you buy one of them and you let it go free. You're giving that life. It cuts through a lot of hindrances. That's how powerful this is. You can let go of immeasurable suffering in yourself when you give that life back and you give it with the wish for happiness and health and whatever. Anyway, I had a student that could sit for 3 or 4 hours without any problem. And I had to go to Indonesia for a couple of months. So I left and I told her I wanted to keep her practice going. The night I got back, she calls me up on the phone and, you know, how's it going and everything? You keeping your practice going? Not really. Why? I can't sit for more than a half an hour. I said, why? I don't know. I don't want to meditate anymore. I said, no, you have to meditate. You have to meditate for an hour at least. So she kind of grumbled, and then the next day she called me up and she said, I'm really going to quit. I'm not going to meditate anymore. And I said, okay, let's get down to brass tacks here. What precept did you break? Oh, I didn't break any precepts. I said, come on, you got to tell me.
That was one there already.
And finally she said, well, yeah, actually I did break a precept. She said, I really hate ants. Now in Asia you can't hate ants because they're everywhere. But she kept a real clean house, and she just got through cleaning the kitchen, and there's a row of ants going. And so she very carefully swept them away and told them to go away. And she left for a few minutes and came back, and there's that row of ants again. So she went and got the ant balm and she killed them. Ever since then she couldn't meditate anymore. I said, okay. Now we know what the problem is. Because you took life, now you have to give life. So I told her to go buy a couple of chickens and let them go free, and with the strong desire for their happiness and well-being, and letting go of the guilty feeling of killing those other beings. So she had 2 kids. One of them was, I think one of them was 6 and the other one was 3 or something like that. So she took the kids and they went and bought the chickens, and now she's telling the kids about what she's going to be doing, and the kids are in the back playing with the chickens and having a great time. And then she takes them out to the forest and she cuts the strings and lets them go free, and she feels an immediate sense of relief. And the kids think that this is just great fun. I said, let's do that again, Mom. This is good. Anyway, she went back to the house, and her next sitting was 4 hours. And she didn't have that restlessness or anxiety and all of this other stuff. because of the hindrance. That is one of the things that you have to be more and more careful of as you go deeper into your practice, that you don't break the hindrances, because they will affect your meditation very negatively.
Break the precepts.
Precepts.
I need to know what those are again.
We'll show you in a bit. So this is some of the examples of the way that you can practice your loving kindness. And you can help beings go from the worst days in their life to the best day in their life. And some people, they say, well, I went and bought some fish, but they were freshwater fish, and the only place I can let them go is down in this pond, and there's people that are fishing there, so I feel real guilty letting them go. But no, you don't feel guilty about that. That being's karma is that being's karma. Okay, so you let that being go. You can let the chicken go, and that night a fox can come and kill it. But you gave that much more life to that chicken. And it was that being's karma to have that happen to it. You let the fish go in a freshwater pond and there's people fishing. It's that being's choice either to go after that bait and get caught again and die, or not. It's up to that being. It's not your problem anymore. So the more you can practice your loving kindness in all kinds of different ways, and the more that you can give your happy thoughts to other people, you give your happy speech to other people, and you give your happy actions to other people, the more it will affect you in a positive way. Now, the Buddha said that when you're giving a gift, there's three things that you should do. When you're giving the gift, prepare the gift with a happy mind. While you're giving the gift, give the gift with a happy mind. After you've gone away, after you've given that gift away, reflect on that being a really good thing that you did with a happy mind. And that will lead to more and more balance in your mind. Your meditation will be much better. And everything becomes easier as you practice this. So there's a lot of these fancy restaurants that they have fish in the fish pond, or in the fish tank, that they will, you walk in and you say, I want that one, and they'll pull that one out and they'll kill it and give it to you for a meal. But you can buy those fish and let them go free. Or you can do with crabs or lobsters. But I recommend it highly. And giving life is one of the highest gifts that you can give. Giving Dhamma is the highest gift. So, as you start to progress in your practice, you'll become more and more sensitive to these kind of things, and you'll start to see more and more wonderful things happening because you're focusing on positive things. A lot of times what happens with people, if there are some problems in life, they start to become myopic. You know what that means? You don't have any side vision. You just see what's directly in front of you. And all you see is the problem. But if you start focusing on the solution instead of the problem, miracles happen. Wonderful things happen. Things that you never would have even believed possible could happen. And after you keep going with your loving kindness and you keep practicing with it, it gets so second nature to see miracles happen that it's not even a shock anymore. I mean, you just like, yeah, an example, I practiced loving kindness a lot when I was in Malaysia. I visited people in the hospital a lot. I went to see this one guy. Somebody would come up and say, my mother just got out of surgery. She had stomach cancer and she's still in the recovery area. Would you go see her? Being a monk means that I can get into a lot of places that a lot of other people can't. And this time I happened to be with somebody that wanted to come with me to the hospital, so they were practicing along with me. So I went in to where this woman was, and she has a mask on, an oxygen mask, but it's a clear one, so you can see through. So I'm standing there and I'm starting to wish her well, and I close my eyes and I'm just really starting to radiate very nicely and really getting into the flow. And my student goes, wow, look at that. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, she's smiling. She was under... And she was knocked out, but she was smiling. So I said, oh, look at that. Okay, our job's done here. So, but you get to see all kinds of really amazing things the more you focus on the loving kindness. I saw real amazing things happen with people when I was giving massage. And I was sending the love through my hands. And I was consciously just focusing on the love, not wishing that they get well, not trying to make the energy do some particular thing. All I did was radiate loving kindness and let it go through my hands. And I saw amazing things happen. So these kind of things, they become more and more common. It's not a surprise anymore, you know. Somebody else will see you do it and they'll go, whoa, how did you do that? Well, it's simple. You focused on the solution, not on the problem. I had one lady that came to see me from Cape Girardeau, which is about 90 miles away. She came a couple times to see me. And I started teaching her the loving kindness meditation. And then we went to Cape Girardeau and she came to see me and she said, are you teaching magic? And I said, well, in a way, yeah, I am teaching magic. I'm showing you the magic of letting go of thoughts and feelings that pull you down and developing an uplifted mind. And in a way, that's a kind of magic. Oh. She just couldn't believe that so many good things could happen to her and for her and with other people around her when she kept focusing on the loving kindness. Now, I haven't gotten very far in this particular sutta, and we'll do the rest of it kind of fast. Okay, there were 6. Then there are 6 principles of being cordial that create love and respect and conduce to cohesion and non-dispute, to concord and to unity. I've already talked about the 3. The next one is a monk uses things in common with his virtuous companions in the holy life. without making reservations. He shares with them any kind of gain of any kind that accords with the Dhamma and has been obtained in a way that accords with the Dhamma, including even the mere contents of his alms bowl. Now, there's a kind of practice that monks can do. It takes 12 years. It takes the practice of doing it every day for 12 years. And this is a practice of generosity. No, monks don't handle food, or they don't handle money. So the kind of generosity that we practice, or can practice, is I go to a monastery and I tell the head monk and all of the other monks that I want to practice this kind of generosity. And that is, I will go out on alms round, and when I come back, I give whatever food's in the bowl to the head monk. He takes what he wants. I go to the next monk. He takes what he wants. I go to the next monk. He takes what he wants. If I run out of food, I go back on alms round and gather the food, and then I go to the head monk and see what he wants there, and the next monk, and the next monk. And I wind up feeding everybody in the monastery before I take food for myself. Now the trick is, you practice this kind of generosity, but you can't have one thought moment of remorse for giving food. There's sometimes that there's monks that come through that they might not be such good monks. And it's a real easy practice to give him the food and then walk away going, that guy's really a turkey, why did I give him that food? You can't have one thought like that for 12 years. After 12 years, any place, say I did that for 12 years, I've never done it, it's a really hard practice. Staying in one place for 12 years is an amazingly hard thing to do for me because I move a lot. But after 12 years, anywhere I would go, when it was time for me to eat, there would be food in my bowl. I could be in the middle of the ocean on a boat and nobody else around. When it was time for me to eat, there would be food in the bowl. That's the advantage of doing this kind of practice. Practicing your generosity to such a fine degree, but it's not just the generosity, it's the mental discipline of watching your mind so that there's no remorse coming into your mind for 12 years. That's a wholesome mind. That's really, it's nice to be around people like that. And that's the way it is in Asia. Not every place. Sometimes there's just one monk in a particular place that has done a practice that's really amazing. You know, they might practice loving kindness for the last 50 years. And you walk into the room with them and you're like, oh man, it's like getting knocked over with this. And he's not even like paying attention to you. He's fiddling around here and doing this over here. You just walk into the room with him and it's like overwhelming. And you're smiling and you're giggling and you're kind of chuckling to yourself because it feels so good. I've had the opportunity to be around people like that. It's really fun. So the more you can keep your practice of generosity going and sharing, the easier your mental discipline is, the easier everything is. Now, there are certain rules that monks can follow. They're called Dhutanga rules, and they're kind of disciplines that are a little bit above and beyond what other monks might be doing. And one of those rules is that you never eat food that's not in your bowl. It has to be offered. Somebody has to put it in your bowl for you, or you don't eat. And I've been with monks that have been like that for years and years. I have no idea. I think they've been practicing since they became full monks. And they were in their 60s anyway, so they've been doing it for 40 years, however long. And when you sit down and you start eating with these monks, you feel like sharing with them. So you have a nice little tidbit, put it in the bowl, and you share that way. And it's real fun. It's really nice. When I went to Australia, I went straight from Malaysia, and it was the shortest day of the year when I got to Australia. It was starting to get cold. And I wasn't prepared for cold at all. I mean, I had my robes, I had no socks, I had no warm clothes at all. So I'm going to visit one of my friends, and as I'm going there, I'm starting to think, boy, my toes are really cold. You know, there's almost no feeling in them. It was that cold. It'd really be nice if I could get a pair of socks. And I went to see him, and then I went to a monastery where I was going to stay. And when I went to the monastery, I walked in, somebody came in with all kinds of socks. And they were distributing them to the monks. So I got a pair of socks, and I said, this is great stuff. And the next week I had a dozen pair of socks. And I'm starting to walk around going, I don't need any more. I got enough. But the thing is, a lot of things are given to me. A lot. And I accept everything. Whatever you want to give, I'll accept it. And then I get to give it away. I get to give it to somebody else. At some monasteries, at the end of the range retreat, there's a special kind of ceremony. It's called the Katina ceremony, where people come and they donate all kinds of things for monks that are going to be leaving that monastery and going other places around. And one of the big things that's offered is robes. I was at a monastery and I had 100 robes given to me in one day. Oh my God, what am I going to do with 100 robes? So I got one of my friends, they said, do you know where there's a poor monastery where they don't have many robes? He said, yeah, I know a couple of them. I said, good, have 100. But that's the way it is with monks. We share among ourselves a lot, but if there's no monks around, I wind up sharing with anybody that's around. I give stuff away all the time. And it's really fun. I like that. One of the hardest things I had to learn was to accept. You know, I don't need any more things. No, you can't do that. Anytime somebody wants to give something, I have to accept it. What I do with it after you give it is for me. And I wind up giving away this, giving away that. Oh, you need some of these? I got some of those. So it's kind of a fun practice. The next part of this sutta is talking about developing your virtue, developing your, keeping your precepts as closely as you possibly can. There's all kinds of advantages of doing that. You have an uplifted mind. You become much more mindful of what you're going to do before you do it. So keeping the precepts is a very important part of the practice. I had one student that she would not break any precepts for any reason. And she was like that her whole life as far as I know. And she was always helping people do this and helping people do that. She was really a wonderful person. She wanted to learn how to meditate. I said, fine, come to the retreat, I'll teach you how to meditate. Now this is a person that had never done any meditation in her whole life. She was almost 50. So she comes and I give her the instructions in the morning, and in the afternoon I walk around and I say, well, how's it going? And she said, it's okay. I'm starting to get the hang of it. How long are you sitting? Oh, I can only sit for 45 minutes. Only, that's the key. So I said, well, why don't you sit longer? She said, you know, I'm not used to sitting on the floor and my knees are just killing me at 45 minutes. I can't stand it anymore. I have to get up and walk. So I said, well, okay, why don't you sit in a chair instead? Our next sitting was 4 hours. She got into the first jhana. The first day she ever tried to meditate. She was amazing. And on the second day she comes back and she said, you know, this meditation, it works pretty good. I think I'll keep doing it. Her progress in the meditation was phenomenal. It didn't take her very long to get to the end result. The last thing that the Buddha was talking about was developing your wisdom. Developing your wisdom in Buddhism always means seeing how the process of dependent origination works. I've been telling you about dependent origination for quite a while. You have a feeling come up, and right after that there's tension and tightness, that's craving. Right after that there's your thoughts about and your concepts and opinions and all of those things. And your habitual tendency. This is a part of dependent origination. As you become more familiar with that, you start letting it go and you start seeing more and more little parts of the dependent origination. There's 12 different links, but there's no sense in going through them right now. So developing your wisdom means seeing how the process of mind's attention actually works. And seeing this as an impersonal process. It's just a cause and effect relationship. Everything. So when you develop practicing and seeing dependent origination more and more clearly, you develop more and more balance in your mind and in your practice and in your life. So the things that used to get you really upset, now they barely even bother you. It's just like, okay, now let's work with this one. It's not such a big deal. So that's what this sutta is all about. It's about learning how to lovingly accept whatever arises and keep your mind focused on love and kindness. Learning how to develop your compassion. And an awful lot of people, they think compassion is taking another person's pain away from them, and it's not. Compassion is seeing another person in pain, allowing them to have their pain, and then focus on the solution. Love them no matter what. That's what compassion really is. I've read so many articles since I've been back in different magazines about how people try to how they try to develop their compassion with working with hospice and working with all these people that are ill and all of that, and everybody burns out. The only reason they burn out is because they don't really practice compassion. They're doing things with an attachment. They're not allowing the space for the other person to be the way they are and make it okay and love them no matter what. When you do that, you take off that myopic vision, and that gives that other person space to change. Okay, so anybody have any questions? Got into a lot of stories today.
That doesn't need to get out of your background.
Well, I need to know about the precepts again, since this is my last day here.
Well, we'll give you a copy of it.
Okay. And since I've killed a number of moths in my kitchen, I guess
See the one in the window?
I know, I've been watching it, yeah. These are little guys that get into my grain and
Foods,
stuff.
yeah.
So now I feel like I need to go to Pike Market and buy some crabs and let them go at the wharf.
Good. That's a great thing to do.
It's
Yeah,
fun. I tell my husband
it's
though, because
really-
the crabs are expensive, and if I let them go, he'll get mad.
You'll notice the difference though.
You will notice the difference. You'll feel a relief that you didn't think. I didn't even know that I had that heaviness.
I have a real affinity for animals and creatures anyway, and I feel an awful lot, and I've spent my whole life reading about animals and about their feelings.
Mhm.
Elephants weep,
Oh,
and about
sure.
how they care for their elderly, and when someone's died, and just a lot of things. So I have a real affinity for animals anyway.
Look at
I've been ushering spiders out of my house for a very long time and stuff, but these little moths, just so easy to go.
It's easy to do that with mosquitoes too, but it's
Oh,
not such a good thing.
No.
Actually, I haven't had any mosquito problems since ages.
That's
And
right.
I'm for it
If
anymore.
you don't kill mosquitoes.
I had a place where I was building all kinds of things, and I had to take down this one structure, and as soon as they started pulling it down, there must have been 75 anyway black widows.
Ooh.
And I saw them. I kept opening up, not hurting any of the black widows, but just making it light. And then I walked away for 15 minutes. I gave them a chance to go someplace else. And they don't like being in the light, so they did. So I didn't have to kill any of them. And I told my aunt that, and she said, "Why didn't you kill them?" And I said, "I didn't need to." She said, I said, if I kill black widows, they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to come and start biting on me, and I don't want that to happen. And she said, "A dead black widow doesn't talk." And I said, "Right before you squish him, he does." So I get stung very, very little with wasp or spiders or anything like that. Very little. Because I refuse to kill them.
If you hire somebody to come to your house and kill wasps, are you?
There's other ways of
Innocent.
getting rid of wasps.
Well, they moved into our wall this
Yeah, I know.
before
I
winter
know all
set
about
in,
them.
and they were coming into the house. They
I
broke
know
through the
all about 'em.
wallpaper because they mushed it all up inside. I saw this little wasp butt. I went and this noise, and I saw this little spot. I said, "What is that?" And it was a little wasp butt sticking out of the hole, and it went
dink like that to make it go back inside. And all I did was crack off the plaster about this big around.
So then they
Wasps
really
were
came in.
coming. They're yellow jackets. Anyway, he had a guy come and spray.
But you can make it uncomfortable for them and they will leave. And cayenne pepper is really wonderful stuff for that. You spray cayenne pepper,
They gotta go. Oh.
they will leave.
Really,
Yeah.
huh. How do you spray cayenne pepper?
Mix it with water.
You just put it in a mister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creative solutions from Buddhists.
Yeah,
You
because
get
there aren't too many
cockroaches
people
and
around.
don't want any cockroaches in your house. You take a cucumber and you cut it up real fine, you put it in a bowl of where they go and they will leave. They won't be around anymore. They don't like the smell of that.
What do you do for the little moths? I have to put all my grains in the freezer?
Well, you gotta get different kind of containers for your
Do you have
grains.
open packages?
No, put them in jars with, you know, a gasket and a clamp down.
Sometimes, like when it happened to me, I found a small box of granola that was in the back of the closet,
Yeah.
and they had gotten in. That's what they had laid all the babies in.
Mm-hmm.
And then another time it's usually like a leftover cereal box. Somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
Have
got
you
cereal
found-
in another cupboard.
Have you found where they?
you gotta find the source.
No, because they
You gotta take everything out of the cabinet.
come from all
and clean it
over.
all out, and then go through each of the boxes and containers. You've done it too, haven't you, Casey? You have to go through everything and check and see if they're there, and make this spider webby stuff in the
Yeah,
food.
it looks like a little cocoon.
Yeah, but it's like spider webby stuff on food.
Oh,
You know?
yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, you'll
It's
find
kind of,
clumps of it inside.
yeah. So then what do you do?
You throw it out and get rid of that. Take it outside and throw it out and clean all your cabinets and disinfect and start all over again.
Throw it out, isn't that killing them and disinfecting by
Take
taking
it out and throw it in the woods.
It's not killing them, it's letting them go out to where they can finish eating and live quite nicely. But what you want to do is put some cayenne pepper in your water and wash
Inside.
the inside, the walls, the underneath the shelves, tops of the shelves. They'll leave you alone.
Oh, will that work for other moths too? We have clothes moths we brought from Pittsburgh.
You
You
import
gotta
them?
find, okay, your nest is inside, it's between two things that are hanging someplace in the zipped up
I've
bags or whatever.
Gone through
Turn into a Buddhist nature program.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Anyway.
wallop. I brought them from Massachusetts to Virginia, same thing.
Be suffering ones, be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. So.